Right, hi guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula 1. And what's happened in the week leading up to the final Grand Prix race weekend? Well, of course, we had the spectacular news that Codemasters had been purchased for £725 million by Electronic Arts. EA Sports, it's in the game. And do you know what is in the game? A lot of little microtransactions for you. You want pit stops? That's going to cost you $4.99 on the new F1 2021 game. Much love. There you go. That's how it's all going to be, isn't it? Absolutely fantastic stuff there. I mean, as if the F1 games weren't shite enough. That's just made them a little bit more shiter, hasn't it? Just that little bit more shiter. And of course, what else happened in the world this week? Well, Nigella Lawson called a microwave a microwave. fucking microwave. I'm not even making that up. I am not even making that up. There was a video of her making something and she went, I'm just going to pop this in the microwave. Fucking microwave. Jesus Christ. Got me talking about her though, didn't it? You see? You're still relevant, Nigella. More relevant than this Formula 1 race I'm going to be talking about anyway. So here we go, we're going to kick things off, of course, with the race winner. If you've never seen this series before either, that start was tragic. Probably never going to do that again. But I award drivers out of a possible 10 points. You can get 10 points for a maximum brilliant result if I think you've done really well. And you can have all the way down to 0 if you've done really badly. I do award plus points and I do award minus points on top of the 10 or off of the 0. So you could be looking at some really high or really low scores. That's just life, I'm afraid. It's the life of the Crawl Room. You know, you're a Formula 1 driver, you take your chances in your hand. You want to win a world title? Oh, it's not quite as coveted as this, though, is it? So, of course, the finale, the Grand Prix climax, the final one of the season, you think, God, this is going to be so gripping, isn't it? We're at Yawn Marina. That's right. Oh, God, at Abu Dhabi. Oh, amazing stuff. And nothing happened. Nothing happened at all, did it? Nothing happened at all. In fact, qualifying was more exciting than the race, let's put it that way. So I'm going to kick things off with the race winner, Max Verstappen. Cracking effort in qualifying to take that pole position, and in the race, pulled away, had the measure of the Mercedes. We've never said that before, have we? No one's had the measure of Mercedes this year, really, have they? It's only took Mercedes to cock up as to reasons why they didn't win before. But unbelievable stuff from Max Verstappen. A controlled drive, a measured drive. He had fastest lap all the way up until the last lap of everyone else's race. He'd already crossed the line with the fastest lap, but Daniel Ricciardo picked him at the end for that one final point. So, what a shame there. It stopped him from being the youngest person to ever complete a Grand Slam, which is, of course, pole position, fastest lap, leading every lap of the race. It came that little bit short. So, shame to see that. But, other than that, it's a whopping 10 points for Max Verstappen. It's a maximum 10. It's a perfect 10. But she wears a 12. Baby, keep a little 2 for me. So, and I'll be keeping a little 2 for me, because I'm not giving you any more bonus points, Max. It's just 10 points. So, you know, maybe we're going to give you 12, but you decided to keep a little 2 for me. Okay, hon. So it's just 10 points for Max Verstappen. I say just 10 points. It's a perfect score. And the only reason I'm not awarding him any bonus points or any special points is because I genuinely think Red Bull were quick this weekend. Albon was on the back of Hamilton come the end of that race. We've not said that all year long, and he's not been in that position all year long. So that Red Bull must have been quick, and it must have been a good car, and Max Verstappen was just the best driver on the day. So, you know, no special bonus points there because it looked like Red Bull was the fastest car this weekend. And, of course, it's very rare I award the Mercedes drivers bonus points. Well, in fact, it's rare I even score him any points at all, to be honest. But you know what I mean. I can't go being non-biased now, can I? I can't suddenly score more than another because it's favouritism, because this is a serious business on this Crawl Room series. Then we come to Valtteri Bottas. I could talk about his qualifying and I could talk about his race, and the fact I'm talking about him this early on means he was second place in the race, and he did qualify P2. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter, and I'm going to award him 0 points because, yeah, unfortunately, Valtteri, you qualifying ahead of and beating Lewis Hamilton, who has had a week out of racing because of coronavirus and still isn't feeling 100% despite bringing back a negative test. Yeah, you don't impress me much. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, so you've got a car. Don't impress me much, Valtteri. Don't impress me much. Then we come to Lewis Hamilton. The blessed one returns. The blessed one returns, of course. And yeah, get well soon. I said I'd like to see him back on the grid for the final race. Get that grid back to as normal as possible can be. And he did do. He returned. and he dented himself a podium. It wasn't the best weekend by any stretch of the imagination. Qualifying third and finishing third for Hamilton standards is very low, but considering what he went through the week previous, missing a race, which was his first time ever missing a Formula 1 race, you know, it's going to take its toll on him, isn't it? And of course, suffering from coronavirus. Never had the bloody thing, but I can imagine it's not very nice if you're not asymptomatic anyway. So yeah, it's going to be 7 points for Lewis Hamilton. I think it was okay. It was a solid enough weekend. Nothing special, but a podium on a return. I think he can be satisfied with that. Another trophy to add to the ever-growing collection. And yeah, I'm sure he'll come back to winning ways next year. So there you go, 7 points to Lewis Hamilton. And then we come to the curious case of Alexander Albon. And as mentioned, he was up there, wasn't it? I mean, he got stuck behind Lando at the start, which wasn't ideal, but he soon dispatched him. And then it was just a clear, easy fourth. He dropped away after the safety car period and got a gap of like 10 seconds to catch up to the back of Hamilton with. And he eventually did that and then was just on the back of him. I think it was about 2 seconds the gap in the end when he crossed the line. So proof there that he could have done it, but he didn't. So it's going to be 7 points to Alex Albon. It was okay, wasn't it? And there's very, very, very strong rumours now coming out of the camp that it could be Perez at Red Bull next year. So watch this space. I'm not sure how true it is. This is, of course, recorded on the Sunday evening to go out on the Monday. So breaking news can happen at any time, can't it? But they're expecting it to be within the next few days, confirming Perez at Red Bull. And I'd love to see it. I would personally love to see it. Albon, you're a great lad, but you've had a lot longer time in that car than Gasly has, and this is probably realistically the best showing you've had. But as mentioned with Verstappen, I think the car was just naturally quick and built for this circuit. You know, cars are just naturally good at some places, aren't they? And this was one of them, and you still didn't deliver, because if it was the best car on the grid, you should have been second then behind your teammate, shouldn't you, really, at worst? And you weren't. So there you go, 7 points to Alex Albon. Then we come to the McLaren pairing of Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz. Of course, Ferrari bound for next year is Carlos Sainz Jr. Finishing together 5th and 6th place, and it's going to be simple. It's 9 points each. I did get that right. 9 points each to Lando Norris and to Carlos Sainz, because they did net themselves 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship by just a couple of points over Racing Point in the end. Perez broke down, Lance Stroll didn't get his shit together, but McLaren had to push and they couldn't afford to finish any lower than where they did, otherwise they'd have been in jeopardy of losing that 3rd position in the Constructors' Championship. So they drove cleverly, the pair of them there, I think. I think they did a really solid job, a really good team game there. I don't think they could have gone any further forward than 5th and 6th. That was the best they could have got this weekend. But, having said that, they had to keep out of trouble to get there, and they drove a smart, sensible race. Norris choosing not to fight with Albon. Moments like that really come to fruition. You think, yeah, it's not worth it. I can let those points go, but in the long run, we're okay. And fair play to them for that. And McLaren deserved 3rd in the Constructors this year. They really, really did. The expansion of this team and how fast they've shot up the order since getting rid of Fernando Alonso is really surprising to see, isn't it? And it's proof that Alonso, I just think, is dead weight. Bit toxic environment from him, and I don't really rate him that much anymore. I've got to be honest, I was a big fan of him back in the day. Even before he won his World Championships, I used to be a fan of him. Fernando Alonso, I think, is dead weight, and I don't think he brought much to that team. Proving it that Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz have got the best results they can over the last couple of years. Going to be a shame to see that partnership end with the duo together, but overall, fantastic effort by McLaren. And 9 points each to the drivers for that solid drive. They had to keep it clean and tidy, and they did do that and brought the maximum home. So well done to them too. Then we come to Daniel Ricciardo, and a clever strategy by Renault worked out for them, and it didn't work out for anyone else, but it worked for Ricciardo, solely Ricciardo. He decided not to pit under the virtual safety car, then safety car, stayed out. But because the Ferraris behind did the same thing, it then meant that he had a massive gap over the rest of the field. So he popped into his pit box, popped back out again, and he was virtually in the same place. I think he lost 2 places. He was 5th, wasn't he? And he dropped to 7th. So, you know, apart from losing out to the 2 McLarens, before that all kicked off, he was running 9th or 10th, wasn't he? So he gained out of that massively. And a clever strategy by Renault there. They saw that Ferrari weren't pitting, they didn't pit, and it all worked out quite well for him. So yeah, Daniel Ricciardo, solid drive, and that fastest lap point at the end. It wasn't crucial for anything, but it was just nice for him to get, and it was nice to see he got it on some fairly old tyres as well at the end of that race. So congratulations to Daniel Ricciardo, and I'm going to award him a solid 8 points. Solid 8 points there for Daniel Ricciardo. A top drive. He's, of course, McLaren bound next year, so his final race in Renault did the best job he could. Well done, Danny Rick. And then we come to Pierre Gasly, of course, and what could be said for Gasly's race? Okay, it was fairly solid once again. Both AlphaTauris into Q3, but Gasly being out-qualified by Kvyat once again. Case of too little too late for Kvyat though, I'm afraid, isn't it? And overall in the race he netted 4 points and, of course, P8 on the road. So, fair play to him for that. And yeah, good race, good drive. Not the best we've seen of him this year, but I think he got the best out of the car. It wasn't looking the strongest around the Yawn Marina Bay. So, yeah, I think 8 points. 8 points is fair for Pierre Gasly. He's drove solidly all season, my man of the season, as I'm sure you'll see in the Cruel Room results at the end of this video. But yeah, fantastic, fantastic stuff. So yeah, well done to Pierre Gasly. That's 8 points on the board for you. And then we come to Esteban Ocon, and yes, 9th position in the end after taking Lance Stroll on the final lap of the race. And I'm going to award Esteban Ocon the same points I've awarded Danny Rick, which is going to be 8 points, because once again he had to get out the way of his teammate, and it was such an early stage and phase in the race that it can't be classed. I just thought it was, I didn't like it. I've got to be honest, I didn't like that bit. I know, of course, they were battling with the constructors and Racing Point were having a mare, and they maybe thought we could capitalise here, and fair play for that, I get that, but Ocon's been jumping out the way a lot recently, and sometimes I've never felt it quite justified. And this one especially. I know they might have been on different strategies, etc., but it's the last race of the year. Ocon was on merit ahead of Ricardo. And yeah, just seems to be losing a lot of time having to jump out Ricardo's way. It's not Ocon's fault he's ahead of Ricardo. And yeah, Ricardo might be faster, but if Ricardo's putting himself in a situation where he's behind Ocon, then you've got to think about things as Renault and go, right, hang on, Ricardo's faster, but he's having shitter starts. So you've got to put your eggs in another basket at some point, haven't you? So, of course, Ocon's teammate will be Fernando Alonso next year, so expect Esteban Ocon to do absolutely shite next year in the Renault, get binned off, and we'll never see him again in Formula 1, because that's how Alonso destroys his young teammates now, doesn't he? Because he didn't like being beaten by Hamilton that year, did he? So that's what he does. He has the car designed around him, no one else can listen, he doesn't look after his teammate, and then it all goes to shit. So I look forward to seeing Renault plummet down the order next year. They might start off strongly enough because of what they've built on this year, but I see a decline come the end of the season, let's put it that way. Yes, so there you go. That's my predictions for next year, and it's 8 points for Esteban Ocon. I think you're getting a little bit scapegoated there, moving out of the way like you have done the past few races anyway. Not deserved at all. Then we come to Lance Stroll, the mightiest bottle job on the grid. Now let's think about it, right? We're going to say Mercedes were faster, Red Bull were faster. We can even say McLaren was faster this weekend, I think we can all say. But I am convinced that that Racing Point was still the 4th fastest car on the grid. The only reason why I can't say that is because we couldn't see what Perez could do from the back of the grid, and Lance Stroll went backwards. So I can't fully appreciate how quick that Racing Point was. But, nonetheless, it is the 4th fastest car on the grid. He should have got past maybe a McLaren at the very best. And he didn't. And he's cost the team 3rd place in the Constructors. Single-handedly as well. I'm going to say that. It's single-handedly cost himself. He's cost his daddy. He's cost his daddy £4 million. Because he's been shite ever since that podium at Monza. And only the podium last time out at Sakir, which was, of course, again, a lucky one. But, you know, that happens in racing. Absolutely fine. He's only scored another 2 points and then 1 here. He's been trounced all over by Perez. Yeah, he's done really badly, hasn't he? He's done really, really badly. So, yeah, Lance Stroll, it's minus 10. Minus 10. Daddy's not going to be very happy with you tonight, and you're not going to get any tea. So, what I suggest you do is grovel to your dad and go, oh, Daddy, can I please stay in F1? Oh, no, it's all right, I'm staying in F1 anyway, while Sergio Perez may not be if he doesn't get the Red Bull seat. That's how it works. Yeah, I forgot money. Silly me. So yeah, minus 10 for Lance Stroll. I just really, you uninterested me this weekend, it's got to be honest. You drove shite. Then just outside the points is Danny Kvyat, and oh, Danny, it's probably going to be his last race in Formula 1. Yuki Tsunoda, heavily rumoured to be in that AlphaTauri seat, and Yuki deserves it. I would say he does deserve it based on his racing performances this year in F2. without a doubt, if you've seen F2, you'll know what I mean. He's had some really bad luck as well, let's not forget, and he still managed to finish third in the championship overall, so well done to him for that. But yeah, Yuki Tsunoda, if he gets it, absolutely fantastic and will be thoroughly deserved. But I do spare a thought for Danny Kvyat. He's not my favourite driver on the grid. I thought when he came back to AlphaTauri and the Toro Rosso guys as it was, I was very unimpressed with that decision, but he seemed to have grown up a lot. And then this year, he's been unlucky not to get a podium, especially last time out at Sakhir. This time around, he was robbed once again, wasn't it? It was a double stack in the pits. I had a look into this, why he lost out. He did lose out to Gasly prior to the pit stop, so the virtual safety car came out. They decided to double stack. They had a slightly slow stop on Gasly's car, and then they had a longer stop for Kvyat's car, and then that meant he dropped out the points, and at a circuit you can't overtake at. He was stuck in 11th with cars that were just as quick around him, so there was nothing much he could do. Massive shame for that. It'd have been a double points AlphaTauri finish, but it wasn't to be. What a shame. And Danny Kvyat to end his career like that, if it is going to be his last race, it's going to be a great shame. I think he deserved the points this weekend. So I'm going to knock him 1 point off just because he couldn't get round Stroll and couldn't really keep in touch with him, because there's a 5-second gap at the line from Stroll to Kvyat, and Stroll was shite. So I think he should have been a bit closer to that race at least. So for that reason, it's going to be 7 points. I don't blame him fully. I think he had a really, really unlucky pit stop there to lose out at the double stack, and that's what cost him heavily. But I'm docking him a point just for not being on the arse end of Stroll like Ocon was, because Stroll was shite. Then we come to Kimi Raikkonen, who's of course going to be the oldest, most experienced driver he is anyway, and he's going into it next year as well. So we look forward to seeing more Kimi and more shouting on the radio. For what? For what? Well, for what, Kimi? P12, fantastic finish, made the strategy work for his car, and it's going to be 9 points for Kimi. I like Kimi. I do like Kimi, so I'm going to be a bit biased again there. But he absolutely trounced his teammate in the race, didn't he? Giovinazzi had quite a few positions behind, finishing ahead of both Ferraris on compromised strategies, but regardless, he finished ahead of him, didn't he? So well done to him. The highest Ferrari-powered car. So that's got to be noted. So yeah, 9 points to Kimi Raikkonen. I look forward to more of his antics next year. Then, as mentioned, it's the Ferrari pairing of Sha-La-La. And, of course, Sebastian Vettel. You spin me. No, he still didn't. He still didn't spin. And I'm going to group these together. They finished together. They were shite together in equal measures. And, of course, the team was shite in equal measures. What a crap strategy by the team. They never had the pace to do anything, staying out there and then trying to get an overcut on everyone by having the faster tyres at the end. It just wasn't going to work, was it? But they tried some, I suppose. And it's just difficult to judge their races from that. So it's going to be incredibly short and sweet for the Ferrari duo. It's going to be 5 points to Sha, and it's going to be 5 points to Sebastian Vettel. And it's as simple as that. Then we come to George Russell, back down to earth with a bang, and back down the grid with a bang as well, of course. Didn't have the pace for Q2, the car just wasn't working for him, and that was fair enough. The Haas and the Williams were the very back of the grid cars this weekend, weren't they? Alpha just slightly nuzzling above the pair of them, but those two teams were rock bottom. Yeah, okay lap from Russell in the qualifying session, and then of course in the race. Did the best job he could, just kept out of trouble. It was a difficult one to judge for him, but I think him returning back to the team and doing a solid job once again, I think it proves he can, multitask now, because I've seen it sometimes where people going like, oh, I'm doing an F3 test, and then they come back into Formula Renaults or something. Fucks with their head. They can't do it again. So I'm pleased that George has managed to knuckle straight back down again in the Williams team and finish a season off on the best result he could have really done, to be honest. So he stayed ahead of Giovinazzi, which is, of course, a good thing, and he was ahead of both Asses in the end, and, of course, his teammates. So, for that reason, George Russell is going to be 7 points. Nothing special this weekend, but it was just nice to see that he still had the pace, or the best pace possible, in a really bad car, because sometimes, like I said, it can mess with your head if you go into a quicker car and come back down to a slower car again. So, fair play, George. Multi-talented as always. Then we come to Antonio Giovinazzi, the Italian stallion himself. Italian Jesus, even some have said. And it's going to be short and sweet for Antonio. It's going to be 6 points on the board for him. Solid enough race, solid enough year, really. Qualifying was well, second time in Q2 this year, and out-qualified his teammate overall throughout the year. 9-8 is it? If that equals 17, that'll be right. But yeah, he beat the qualifying statistics, and he got one over on Kimi there. And in the race, was behind his teammate. Wasn't a fantastic race by him. He was on the back of George, but just couldn't get around him. And that was that. So yeah, he had a bit of a battle. Pace wasn't really there this weekend. But yeah, overall, not bad. Not bad. So 6 points to Antonio. Then we come to Nicholas Latifi, and it's going to be short and sweet for him. It's going to be 0. It's going to be 0. I've given him the benefit of the doubt a lot of times, and then even when I thought he's had a bad race, I've given him like 2 or 3 points just to keep him ticking over. But at the end of the season, what happens is spins in Q1, and that means he's out-qualified by Pietro Fittipaldi, who was somewhat off the pace last weekend, and of course this weekend as well, but he out-qualified him. Pietro Fittipaldi out-qualified Nicholas Latifi, who's been in that car all year. Fantastic effort, Nick. Well done. I know you spun, but that's your fault. So don't give me none of that shit. In the race, miles off his teammate. In fact, I didn't see anything of him, really. Did you? Apart from getting lapped, I didn't see anything of him. He weren't doing out racing round on his own. And he only finished ahead of the Haasers because they decided to pit like 14 times. And just have a bit of fun with tyres and try and go fast. So, you know, yeah, there you go. That was that. So 0 to Nicholas Latifi. Whoops. And then, as mentioned, of course, Kevin Magnussen in what will be his last Formula 1 race with the Haas team. Did a couple of donuts at the end there. It was looking good. He had a good start from the back of the grid, of course, with his penalties, so he started stone dead last. And throughout the race, I think he got as high as 16th at one point, maybe 15th, so he did the best job he could with the C-class field there. But then he decided to go for a couple of pit stops extra, and I just think he was either trying to go fastest lap or just trying to have some fun in the car, because at the end of the day they realised that they were nowhere near in a position to really do anything. They weren't going to benefit in the championship from wherever they were. They weren't going to score points, so they just thought, let's have a bit of fun with the pair of them. Brought them in for a couple of pit stops and just sent them out on some new medium tyres or whatever tyres they had left for the weekend, and just sent them to enjoy themselves. So yeah, difficult one to judge for K-Mag for that, but I'm going to award him 6 points. It's probably his last appearance on a Crawl Room series as well, which is the most saddening thing, of course, let's be real. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes next year. I'm going to be really interested, and I'm going to really follow it, and I hope he goes with a championship where he's got chance of podiums and wins. He's done really well for the sport. I've enjoyed his company in the championship. He's been really good, really controversial at times, but overall, a nice guy. So yeah, Kevin, whatever you do in the future, I really wish you well. 6 points on the Crawl Room. And then we come to Pietro Fittipaldi. What could be his last race in Formula 1? And let's be honest, it probably is as well. But yeah, again, he did the same as what his Haas teammate did, of course, and just decided to pit a few times for some tyres and maybe just go out there and have fun. A little bit more testing for him as well, of course. And yeah, overall, I'm going to award him 5 points. And the reason I'm going to give him middle of the road 5 again is the race wasn't that great anyway. I think it was like 20 seconds behind K-Mag, regardless of the pit stops. And then it wasn't fantastic, but the qualifying effort of out-qualifying Latifi, that's what gets you a couple of extra points. I was going to give you about 3, but you deserve 5 for that. And then, of course, we come to Sergio Perez. We had joy, we had fun, we had seasons in the sun. And yes, I'm afraid to say it's a parting gesture from the Racing Point team. His last race for the team ended with a starting at the back of the grid, so he didn't even bother qualifying in Q2. He just got himself through Q1. Q2, no point. Just scrubbed a set of tyres in, and then that was that. So started at the back of the grid, and within a few laps the car broke down again. Seemed to be a gearbox failure, and that was his Racing Point career over. And Racing Point really in the last 3 races have gone low after they scored no points, one upside down. It was crazy, wasn't it? Then to the high points of winning and third, and then the low points of Lance Stroll being really shit, and Sergio Perez breaking down and having no luck at all in his final race for Racing Point. Maybe his final race of Formula 1, perhaps? Although, like I mentioned, heavily rumoured to be with Red Bull next year. So, I can't do anything for Sergio Perez other than giving him unfortunate 5 points. I didn't see anything of him. Couldn't see what the pace of the Racing Point was, and I was going to use Perez as a reference for how crap Stroll was, and I couldn't do it. So yeah, middle of the road, 5 points to Sergio Perez. I could do no other. Right, and now it's time for that moment you've all been waiting for, the Crawl Room Championship of 2020. We've seen some highs, we've seen some lows, we've all shed a few tears, and we've all got really angry in the comments section at some point or another. A massive, massive thank you to everyone that takes the time to watch these videos, let alone comment on them, and then have a good old chat in the comments section as well. It's been really, really nice to see. I brought this series back incredibly last minute. I was not prepared. I wasn't going to do it, and then the lockdown thing happened. I was like, I've got to do it now. Let's spread some joy about the place. And I hope it served a purpose. I really do. I'm thinking of ideas for next year on how to make this better. I know I've toyed with a few things, mainly the Palmer thing, trying to bring him back in as Ghost Foreman. It didn't really work to some extent, and other times it did. So maybe try and play around with that a little bit more for next year and have a bit more of a set plan. I'm also trying to think of ways to try and make this more interactive going into next year. Perhaps a Twitter poll of who do you think the worst driver was, and you can give them minus 10 points or whatever. Of course, I can only give a maximum of 4 drivers in that poll, so I'll pick my 4 worst drivers, and then you can pick the worst one out of those to give minus 10 to, or something like that, is what I'm thinking about at the moment, of course. So let's wait and see. But yeah, it will be returning next year. So you've got that lot to look forward to, haven't you? The Crawl Room will come back. It's Medgy Day. I know it has. So here we go. I'm going to do the top 5. Let's do the top 5, and then we'll call it quits. Everyone else, if you need your favourite driver, go look for it. They're in there somewhere. So in first place is Pierre Gasly with a whopping 143 points on a Crawl Room series. Is that the highest score I've ever done? I can't remember, but I'm sure Will F1 that's in the comment section regularly saying, God, that's the lowest score you've done since then, that has obviously avidly watched the videos. Thank you so much for the support, mate. Means a lot. And yeah, let me know if that's the highest score anyone's ever won with on the Crawl Room series, because I can't remember. Genuinely don't know. But yeah, there you go, Pierre Gasly in P1. We've got Daniel Ricciardo in P2 with 131 points. A cracking effort by Danny Ric this year. Well deserved in that Renault. The first half wasn't great. Spain was really poor, but then after that, the team picked up and did really, really well. Then in third place is Lando Norris. Now, maybe a controversial one, but he scored a lot of good points in the early races, had a bit of a lull mid-season, and then came with a strong flourish of finish there at the end, and he was only 0.5, so he was only 0.5 ahead of the next driver, which was Max Verstappen. Lando Norris scoring 129.5 points, and Max Verstappen scoring 129 exactly. Max Verstappen, what a cracking season he's had. Made a couple of silly errors, mainly like Mugello and things like that, getting involved in accidents he didn't need to. Monza wasn't a great one for him either, but apart from that, it's been fantastic, and he's finished this season off on a massive high. Let's hope Red Bull can continue this momentum that they had on this last race into Australia next year, because that would be impressive to see. But of course we know Mercedes are going to develop once again, aren't they? But yeah, incredibly close between third and fourth there. And yeah, too difficult to choose really, but that's just how the scores have ended up. And there you go. And then in fifth place, this is why I wanted to get to fifth place, because it was well worth noting. Sergio Perez with 126 points finishes in fifth position, missing 2 races due to his positive coronavirus test. Fantastic effort by Sergio. If it wasn't for those 2 races, he'd have been winning the bloody thing, wouldn't he? He'd have, or very close to it. So Sergio, you've gone from being a hated driver of mine, really, it must be said. I wasn't keen on you at the start of the season, but you've really grown on me this year. Once again, you've proved your maturity beyond measure, and you got that hating your teammate out of your business, didn't you, when you kept ramming Ocon? You know, so yeah, fair play to Sergio Perez there to get 126 points. Fantastic stuff. It was incredibly close in the mid-pack there, in all that sort of top 7, top 8 area. Very, very close with points. The results are on the screen now anyway for you to look at. And yeah, there you go. Incredibly close, as you can see. There's like gaggles. It's like an A team, a B team, and a C class, and then Valtteri. But yeah, you know, it's very nicely spread, and I never look at the scores. I never look at the scores because it's Matthew D'Souza that keeps a track of these scores, and a massive thank you to him for doing that. Without doing this series would be more pointless than it already was, because I wasn't keeping track, if I'm being honest. So there you go. So yeah, all that remains to say is now, thank you so much for watching, guys. This is the last one for this year, but there you go. I'm coming back next year. So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and much love.